The quantum research facility sat nestled in the remote mountains of Chile, a testament to human innovation hidden from the world's immediate view. Dr. Elena Rodriguez adjusted her augmented reality glasses, the holographic displays flickering with streams of incomprehensible data that seemed to dance with a life of their own. "Run the simulation again," she muttered to her AI assistant, her voice a mix of exhaustion and determination. The lab around her hummed with an electric tension. 12 researchers from 6 different countries, each bringing a unique perspective to what had started as a seemingly impossible project. Dr. Kai Chen, a quantum physicist from Beijing, leaned over her shoulder. His fingers danced across a transparent data interface, recalibrating complex algorithms with an almost musical precision. "The interference pattern doesn't make sense," he said, his voice tinged with both frustration and excitement. Their project had begun 3 years earlier, an international collaborative effort to solve what many considered an unsolvable problem: how to communicate across vast interstellar distances without the limitations of traditional signal transmission. Every previous attempt had failed. Theoretical models suggested it was impossible, but impossibility had never been a deterrent for this team. Elena's background was unique. A child of Argentine immigrants to the United States, she had grown up hearing stories of innovation born from challenging circumstances. Her mother, a civil engineer, had always told her, "Limitations are just opportunities waiting to be reimagined." Those words had become her scientific mantra. The Stellar Exploration Coalition's deep space probe, a marvel of international engineering, hung in the delicate balance between experimental technology and potential breakthrough. It wasn't just a machine. It was a symbol of human collaborative potential. Constructed with components from research institutions across the globe, the probe represented something more than a scientific instrument. It was a bridge of human potential. Dr. Amara Okonkwo, their lead systems engineer from Nigeria, walked into the lab, her holographic tablet projecting complex dimensional models. "The latest data from the quantum entanglement array is showing something unusual," she said, her voice calm, but laden with unspoken excitement. What they didn't know, what they couldn't yet comprehend, was that their work was being observed. Far beyond the comfortable orbit of human understanding, the Galactic Council's monitoring stations had detected something remarkable. It wasn't the first time they had observed human technological development, but this was different. Representative Zeralin of the Arcturian Collective studied the incoming data streams with growing intrigue. Humans were fascinating, a species that seemed to operate outside the established technological paradigms. Where most civilizations followed predictable paths of technological evolution, humans appeared to leap, to twist, to reimagine. Back in the Chilean research facility, the breakthrough was about to happen. "Wait," Elena suddenly said, her hand freezing mid-gesture. The holographic displays around her shifted, revealing a pattern that defied everything they understood about quantum communication. Kai's eyes widened. "That's impossible," he whispered. But impossibility was a word that held little meaning in this room. The quantum interference pattern they were observing suggested something extraordinary, a method of communication that didn't just transmit information, but could potentially create adaptive communication networks that could learn and evolve in real time. Dr. Okonkwo's fingers flew across her interface. "The signal stability is maintaining coherence at levels we've never seen before. It's like the information is creating its own transmission medium." Outside the lab's reinforced windows, the mountain landscape remained unchanged. But inside, something fundamental was shifting. This wasn't just a scientific breakthrough. This was a moment that would reshape humanity's understanding of communication, of technology, of potential. Elena Rodriguez looked at her team, a diverse group of researchers who had dedicated years to this seemingly impossible quest. Their eyes met, a silent communication more powerful than any technological breakthrough. They were about to change everything. The news of the breakthrough spread like wildfire, but not in the way anyone expected. It wasn't a press conference or a scientific publication that captured global attention. It was a cascading wave of collaborative innovation that transformed how humanity approached complex challenges. Dr. Marcus Chen sat in his small apartment in Singapore, surrounded by holographic displays and half-empty coffee mugs. What had started as a late-night exploration of Elena Rodriguez's quantum communication data had become something far more significant. His adaptive algorithm wasn't just a piece of software. It was a living, breathing system of interconnected intelligence. "This changes everything," he muttered, watching the algorithm evolve in real time. Across the world, research centers, universities, and independent innovators began to connect. The global communication network became more than just an infrastructure. It transformed into a dynamic, responsive organism of collective intelligence. In Mumbai, Priya Nathani, a 27-year-old network engineer, realized the potential immediately. Her startup had been struggling to develop resilient communication technologies for remote regions. Now, with Marcus's algorithm as a foundation, everything changed. "We're not just solving a technical problem," Priya explained to her team during an emergency video conference. "We're creating a new way of understanding communication itself." The algorithm worked unlike anything previously conceived. Traditional communication networks were static, predetermined pathways of information. This new system was different. It could learn, adapt, and reconfigure itself in milliseconds. When one pathway became compromised, the entire network would instantaneously redistribute, creating new routes of communication that seemed to defy conventional understanding. At the European Space Agency's primary research facility, Dr. Johann Schmidt watched in amazement as the first practical applications emerged. Their satellite communication systems, which had been plagued by interference and limited bandwidth, suddenly became incredibly robust. "It's like the network is thinking," Johann told his colleague, Dr. Anya Petrova. "Not just routing information, but anticipating potential disruptions before they happen." The implications were staggering. Critical infrastructure, power grids, emergency response systems, global communication networks could now adapt in real time to potential challenges. A natural disaster in one part of the world would no longer mean complete communication breakdown. The network would simply find new ways to maintain connectivity. Universities around the globe began offering crash courses in the new communication paradigm. What was once a highly specialized field of quantum communication became an interdisciplinary exploration of adaptive systems. In Sao Paulo, a group of community tech centers began implementing the new communication protocols. Areas that had previously struggled with reliable internet access now found themselves at the forefront of a technological revolution. Students in remote villages could now access educational resources with unprecedented reliability. Marcus Chen watched in awe as his algorithm took on a life of its own. It had begun as a theoretical solution to quantum communication interference, but it was becoming something more, a blueprint for a new way of thinking about connectivity, resilience, and collective problem-solving. "We're not just improving technology," he explained during a global webinar watched by millions. "We're reimagining how systems can learn, adapt, and grow." The breakthrough wasn't just technological, it was philosophical. Traditional models of communication assumed fixed pathways, predetermined routes of information transfer. This new system suggested something radical, that communication could be a living, breathing entity that learns and evolves. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, monitoring the global response from her research facility in Chile, felt a mix of excitement and profound responsibility. The quantum communication breakthrough was no longer just a scientific achievement. It had become a global movement of collaborative innovation. "This is what happens when we stop seeing challenges as obstacles," she told her team, "and start seeing them as opportunities for collective growth." Around her, researchers from different disciplines began to converge. Computer scientists worked alongside quantum physicists. Network engineers collaborated with sociologists. The boundaries between traditional academic disciplines began to blur. As night fell across different time zones, the adaptive communication network continued its silent revolution. Satellite networks danced with new possibilities. Information flows that were once rigid and predictable now became fluid, dynamic systems of unprecedented complexity and potential. The world was changing, and humanity was just beginning to understand the true depth of its innovative potential. The abandoned automotive factory in Detroit stood as a monument to industrial transformation. Where once massive assembly lines had produced vehicles, now a new kind of production emerged, a living, breathing ecosystem of innovation that would reshape humanity's understanding of resources. Amara Okonkwo walked through the facility, her augmented reality glasses overlaying holographic design schematics across the vast industrial space. What had begun as a speculative project was now becoming a global movement of resource reimagination. We're not just recycling, she explained to the diverse team of engineers, designers, and community leaders surrounding her. We're creating adaptive infrastructure that responds to human needs in real time. The factory was more than a production center. It was a prototype for a new approach to manufacturing, sustainability, and community development. Solar collectors integrated seamlessly into the building's structure, their intelligent networks constantly optimizing energy capture and distribution. Modular production lines could reconfigure themselves within minutes, shifting from one type of production to another with unprecedented speed and efficiency. In the control room, Carlos Rodriguez, a former automotive engineer turned systems designer, monitored the facility's complex network. Algorithms developed from the quantum communication breakthrough now guided every aspect of production. Materials flowed like living systems, tracked and optimized in ways that seemed to defy traditional economic models. Thousands of miles away, in a research center in Nairobi, Dr. Imani Okeke watched the Detroit facility with intense interest. Her team had been developing similar adaptive manufacturing technologies, specifically designed for regions with limited infrastructure. "Look at how the system anticipates needs," she told her research assistant, pointing to a holographic display showing real-time resource allocation. "It's not just about producing goods. It's about creating responsive ecosystems." The global shift was profound. Traditional manufacturing, with its rigid supply chains and wasteful processes, was becoming obsolete. In its place, a new model emerged that treated resources as dynamic, interconnected systems rather than static commodities. Universities around the world began offering new interdisciplinary programs. Students no longer just studied engineering or economics. They explored complex systems design, learning to think about resources as living, adaptive networks. In Shanghai, a group of young designers developed modular housing units that could be rapidly assembled and reconfigured. These weren't just buildings, they were responsive environments that could adapt to changing community needs, environmental conditions, and technological advancements. The breakthrough came from an unexpected collaboration. Engineers worked alongside ecologists, urban planners partnered with data scientists, and community leaders became integral to technological design. The old boundaries between disciplines dissolved, replaced by a holistic approach to problem solving. Amara's team in the Detroit factory demonstrated this approach perfectly. A single production line could shift from manufacturing medical equipment to creating renewable energy infrastructure within hours. Advanced recycling technologies meant that almost no material was ever truly wasted. Everything became a potential resource for future innovation. "We're reversing centuries of linear thinking," Amara told a global conference of innovators. "Resources aren't something we consume. They're something we continuously transform and reimagine." The economic implications were staggering. Traditional market models based on scarcity began to break down. When resources could be continuously adapted and repurposed, the entire concept of value changed. In rural communities across Brazil, adaptive agricultural technologies emerged. Farmers used intelligent systems that could predict crop needs, optimize water usage, and create microeconomic networks that supported local sustainability. What was once considered marginal land became a hub of innovation. Carlos Rodriguez watched as a production line seamlessly shifted from creating components for medical equipment to producing parts for renewable energy infrastructure. "It's like the entire system is alive," he marveled, observing how materials flowed and transformed. The quantum communication breakthrough had done more than improve information transfer. It had provided a fundamental new way of understanding complex systems, a model of adaptability that could be applied to every aspect of human endeavor. As night fell across different time zones, adaptive factories continued their silent revolution. Resources were no longer static commodities to be extracted and consumed. They had become dynamic networks of potential, constantly learning, evolving, and transforming. Humanity was rewriting the fundamental rules of production, sustainability, and resource management, and this was just the beginning. The United Nations Collaborative Research Center in Geneva buzzed with an energy unlike any diplomatic gathering before. Dr. Sofia Alvarez stood at the center of a circular conference room, her presentation dissolving traditional boundaries between psychology, communication, and global problem-solving. "We're not just sharing information," she explained to the assembled group of researchers, diplomats, and community leaders from every corner of the globe. "We're creating a new language of understanding." The breakthrough had come from an unexpected intersection of disciplines. Neuroscientists worked alongside linguists. Cultural anthropologists collaborated with communication experts, and technology developers partnered with empathy researchers. What emerged was more than a communication strategy. It was a revolutionary approach to human interaction. Dr. Hiroshi Tanaka, a cognitive psychologist from Japan, had developed an adaptive communication protocol that went beyond traditional translation technologies. His system didn't just convert words between languages. It captured contextual nuances, emotional undertones, and cultural subtext that had always been lost in previous translation attempts. "Language is more than words," Hiroshi explained during a global webinar. "It's a living bridge between different ways of perceiving the world." In a small research center in Senegal, Dr. Aminata Diallo had been developing communication strategies for communities with complex linguistic and cultural backgrounds. Her work showed how the new communication technologies could bridge seemingly insurmountable cultural divides. One of her most remarkable projects involved creating communication frameworks for regions with historical conflicts. By using adaptive language technologies and deep empathy mapping, communities that had been divided for generations began to find common ground. The technology worked on multiple levels. Advanced algorithms could now detect subtle communication barriers, unconscious biases, cultural misunderstandings, emotional triggers, and provide real-time guidance for more effective dialogue. In schools around the world, new educational programs emerge. Students learn not just about communication, but about the complex psychological landscapes that shape human understanding. Empathy became a core skill, taught with the same rigor as mathematics or science. Sofia Alvarez's team in Geneva developed what they called adaptive dialogue frameworks. These were more than communication tools. They were sophisticated systems that could help people navigate complex conversations, understand different perspectives, and find collaborative solutions. "We're creating technologies that don't just connect people," Sofia told her team, "but help them truly understand each other." A global network of researchers began sharing insights that transformed how humanity approached conflict resolution. Diplomatic negotiations became less about winning and more about finding mutually beneficial solutions. Business discussions evolved from competitive strategies to collaborative problem-solving. In the mountains of Peru, indigenous community leaders used the new communication technologies to preserve their cultural knowledge while engaging with global scientific communities. What was once a challenging dialogue became a rich exchange of perspectives. Dr. Raj Patel, a communication technology developer in Mumbai, demonstrated how the system could work in real time. During a global conference, he showed a live translation that went far beyond words, capturing emotional context, cultural nuances, and underlying meanings. "Traditional translation is like looking at a painting through a dirty window," Raj explained. "Our new approach is like cleaning that window, letting people see the full depth and complexity of each other's perspectives. The implications were profound. Conflicts that had seemed intractable began to find new paths to resolution. Community dialogues became more productive. International negotiations discovered collaborative approaches that had previously been impossible. A network of community centers around the world began implementing these new communication strategies. They weren't just teaching communication skills, they were creating environments where understanding could flourish. Dr. Aminata Diallo shared a powerful example from a community that had experienced decades of conflict. "It's not about agreeing on everything," she explained. "It's about creating a space where different perspectives can coexist, where we can see our shared humanity." As the day progressed, the research center in Geneva continued its work. Holographic displays showed complex communication networks, adaptive dialogue frameworks that seemed to breathe with human potential. Humanity was discovering something profound. That communication was more than an exchange of information. It was a bridge between different ways of understanding the world, a dynamic, living process of mutual discovery. The quantum communication breakthrough had done more than improve technological connectivity. It had provided a new way of understanding human potential, a model of communication that was adaptive, empathetic, and endlessly creative. The research station, perched on the edge of the Atacama Desert, looked more like an artistic installation than a scientific facility. Massive solar collectors gleamed against the stark landscape, while inside, a global team of researchers worked on what might be humanity's most ambitious technological project. Dr. Raj Patel stood before a holographic display, his fingers tracing complex quantum patterns that seemed to dance with impossible complexity. Around him, researchers from 23 different countries moved with a synchronized intensity that defied traditional scientific boundaries. "We're not just developing a technology," Raj explained to his assistant, Zora Mbeki, a brilliant young quantum engineer from South Africa. "We're creating a new way of understanding information itself." The project had begun as a theoretical exploration of quantum communication principles. What had started in the small research facility in Chile, the breakthrough that Dr. Elena Rodriguez and her team had discovered, had now evolved into a global collaborative effort that challenged everything humanity understood about information transfer. Zara watched as multiple holographic displays showed interconnected research streams. Machine learning algorithms developed in Tokyo worked in concert with quantum computing models from Cambridge. Computational approaches from Sao Paulo integrated with theoretical frameworks developed in Beijing. "Look at how the systems are communicating," Zora muttered, her augmented reality glasses overlaying complex data patterns. The research network was more than a collaborative platform. It was a living, adaptive system of collective intelligence. In a nearby laboratory, Dr. Emma Chen focused on the project's most revolutionary aspect, a communication technology that didn't just transmit information, but could create adaptive networks that learned and evolved in real time. The breakthrough came from an unexpected combination of disciplines. Quantum physicists worked alongside artificial intelligence researchers. Neuroscientists collaborated with communication theorists. Computer engineers partnered with philosophers exploring the nature of information and consciousness. A global network of research centers had been established, each focusing on a different aspect of the technology. The Atacama facility served as the primary coordination point, but the real magic happened in the interconnected research streams that spanned continents. Traditional technological development is linear, Raj explained during a global conference broadcast. "We're creating something circular, adaptive. A technology that doesn't just solve problems, but learns from them." The practical applications were mind-bending. Communication networks that could predict and adapt to potential disruptions. Information systems that could learn from their own transmission. Technologies that blurred the lines between communication, computation, and intelligence. In a small research center in Nairobi, Dr. Amina Okonkwo developed adaptive communication protocols for remote communities. Her work showed how the new technology could provide reliable communication in areas previously considered technologically isolated. It's not about creating more complex technology. Amina explained to her team. It's about creating more accessible, more human technology. The global research network operated unlike any previous scientific collaboration. Traditional academic boundaries dissolved. A researcher in Mumbai could instantaneously collaborate with a colleague in Buenos Aires, their work integrated through adaptive communication networks that seemed to anticipate collaborative needs. Zara Mbeki discovered something extraordinary during a late-night research session. The communication networks they were developing seemed to exhibit properties that went beyond traditional computational models. They weren't just processing information. They were interpreting it, learning from it, evolving with it. It's like the technology is developing its own form of understanding, she told Raj, her voice a mix of excitement and philosophical wonder. The implications stretched far beyond communication technologies. Medical researchers saw potential for adaptive diagnostic systems. Environmental scientists developed models for understanding complex ecological networks. Urban planners imagined intelligent infrastructure that could respond to human needs in real time. At the Atacama facility, the research team celebrated each breakthrough with a sense of collective achievement. These weren't individual scientific victories. They were collaborative human discoveries that expanded the boundaries of what was possible. As night fell across the desert, the research station continued its silent work. Quantum patterns danced across holographic displays. Communication networks pulsed with potential. Information flowed in ways that challenged everything humanity had previously understood. The technological frontier was no longer a distant horizon. It was here now, being created by a global network of researchers who had discovered something profound. That the most powerful technology is not about control, but about connection. Humanity was rewriting the fundamental rules of technological innovation. And this was just the beginning. The Global Challenges Summit looked nothing like traditional international conferences. Suspended in a massive geodesic dome on the outskirts of Geneva, the gathering represented a radical new approach to solving humanity's most complex problems. Dr. Elena Rodriguez walked onto the central stage, her holographic presentation already forming complex, three-dimensional models that seemed to breathe with possibility. Around her, representatives from every continent, scientists, community leaders, educators, innovators, sat in a circular arrangement that defied traditional hierarchical conference layouts. "We're not here to present solutions," Elena began, her voice carrying a quiet intensity. "We're here to discover them together." The summit had emerged from the collaborative technologies developed over the past few years. What had started as breakthroughs in communication and resource management had transformed into a fundamentally new way of approaching global challenges. In one section of the dome, a team from the Amazon basin worked alongside Arctic researchers. Their collaborative interface allowed them to overlay environmental data in real time, creating dynamic models that showed the interconnectedness of global ecological systems. Dr. Marcus Chen, who had developed the adaptive communication algorithms, now served as a facilitator. His role was less about directing and more about creating spaces where collaborative innovation could flourish. "Look at how the information flows," he explained to a group of young researchers. The holographic displays showed complex networks of data, ideas connecting and reshaping themselves in ways that defied traditional linear thinking. A breakthrough emerged from an unexpected collaboration. A group of urban planners from Mumbai worked alongside agricultural experts from Kenya, environmental scientists from Canada, and community leaders from Brazil. Their project focused on creating adaptive agricultural systems that could respond to complex climate challenges. Aisha Mkosi, an environmental engineer from South Africa, demonstrated a new approach to water management that integrated artificial intelligence, community knowledge, and adaptive infrastructure design. Her model showed how technology could support local communities rather than replace traditional knowledge. "We're not solving problems for communities," Aisha explained. "We're creating collaborative frameworks where communities can solve their own challenges." Education transformed alongside these collaborative approaches. Universities around the world began offering programs that broke down traditional disciplinary boundaries. Students learned to think across multiple domains, to see challenges as interconnected systems rather than isolated problems. In the Arctic research section, a team compared ice core data with agricultural productivity models from tropical regions. What seemed like unrelated information became a complex narrative of global environmental transformation. Dr. Elena Rodriguez watched as the collaborative networks formed and reformed. The technology they had developed wasn't just about sharing information, it was about creating spaces for collective understanding. A group of young researchers from different continents worked on a project addressing urban food sustainability. Their interface allowed them to simultaneously access local community data, satellite imagery, agricultural research, and economic models. The boundaries between disciplines dissolved in real time. Traditional problem solving is like trying to understand an ocean by studying individual water droplets, Marcus Chen told the assembly. We're learning to see the entire ecosystem. The most remarkable transformations happened in the margins, in communities that had previously been marginalized from global innovation networks. Indigenous knowledge systems became integrated with scientific research. Local innovations found global platforms. A team from a small island nation in the Pacific demonstrated a community-developed approach to rising sea levels that combined traditional building techniques with advanced climate modeling. Their solution wasn't about fighting nature, but about creating adaptive living systems. As the day progressed, the dome became a living network of human potential. Holographic displays showed complex problem-solving in real time. Ideas connected, transformed, and evolved with a speed and complexity that would have been impossible just a few years earlier. Dr. Elena Rodriguez closed the summit with a powerful observation. Our greatest technology is not in our machines, she said, but in our ability to listen, to understand, and to create together. The collaborative transformation was more than a technological breakthrough. It was a fundamental reimagining of how humans could approach complex challenges, no longer bound by traditional boundaries of discipline, geography, or perspective. Humanity had discovered a new way of understanding itself. As night fell and representatives prepared to return to their home countries, the energy of possibility remained. They weren't returning with solutions, but with something far more powerful, a new way of asking questions, of seeing the world, of working together. Humanity was learning that the most complex problems could only be solved through collective imagination. The International Space Collaborative headquarters rose from the Ecuadorian highlands like a testament to human potential. Its design defied traditional architectural boundaries, a living structure that seemed to breathe with technological and cultural innovation. Dr. Sofia Alvarez stood before a massive holographic display that tracked humanity's most ambitious project yet. It wasn't just a space exploration mission, it was a reimagining of how humanity might exist beyond its home planet. We're not conquering space, Sofia explained to the assembled international team. We're learning to become part of something much larger. The project had emerged from years of collaborative research. Where previous space exploration had been driven by competition between nations, this initiative represented a truly global effort. Researchers from every continent worked together, their communication networks allowing instantaneous collaboration that transcended traditional boundaries. In a control room that looked more like an interactive art installation, Dr. Kai Chen from the Beijing Research Institute worked alongside Dr. Maria Rodriguez from Argentina's space agency. Their workstations merged seamlessly, holographic displays showing complex mission parameters that updated in real time. The mission wasn't about planting flags or claiming territories. It was about understanding, about creating a framework for human existence that went beyond traditional concepts of ownership and competition. Zara Mbeki, the quantum communication specialist from South Africa, had developed communication technologies that allowed for unprecedented levels of collaborative exploration. Spacecraft no longer operated as isolated units, but as part of a living, adaptive network. Look at how the systems communicate, Zora told a group of young researchers. The holographic displays showed communication networks that seemed to breathe with intelligence, adapting and responding to challenges in ways that previous technologies could never have imagined. Educational systems had transformed completely. Schools around the world now offered programs that prepared students for collaborative, adaptive thinking. Children learned not just about space exploration, but about complex systems, cultural understanding, and collective problem-solving. In a research center in Mumbai, Dr. Raj Patel worked on adaptive life support technologies that could respond to the unique challenges of long-term space habitation. His team's approach went beyond traditional engineering. They were creating living systems that could adapt and grow. The most remarkable breakthrough came from an unexpected collaboration. Indigenous knowledge keepers from various cultures worked alongside scientific researchers, bringing perspectives on adaptation, survival, and interconnectedness that transformed traditional approaches to space exploration. An indigenous elder from the Amazon rainforest, consulting on the mission, explained it perfectly. "We're not traveling to a place," she said during a global broadcast. "We're becoming part of a larger story." The spacecraft itself was a marvel of collaborative design. No single nation or corporation could claim ownership. It was a truly global creation, with components developed by research teams from every continent. Its design incorporated insights from multiple cultural perspectives, creating something that was more than just a technological achievement. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, who had been instrumental in the early quantum communication breakthroughs, now led the mission's cultural integration team. Her work focused on creating frameworks for human interaction that went beyond traditional concepts of exploration. "Space is not a frontier to be conquered," Elena explained during a global conference. "It's an invitation to understand ourselves in a larger context." The mission's communication networks allowed for unprecedented levels of public participation. Students from schools around the world could connect directly with the mission, their questions and insights integrated into the exploration process. In the Atacama Desert Research Facility, Dr. Marcus Chen monitored the mission's adaptive communication systems. The technology they had developed allowed for information transfer that went beyond traditional data transmission. It created a kind of collective intelligence that seemed to transcend individual human capabilities. As the spacecraft prepared for its most ambitious journey yet, the entire world watched with a sense of collective possibility. This wasn't just a mission of exploration. It was a mission of understanding, of transformation. The boundaries between Earth and space, between different cultures and perspectives, began to dissolve. Humanity was discovering that its greatest potential lay not in competition, but in collaboration. From the highlands of Ecuador to research centers across the globe, a new story was being written. A story of collective potential, of expanding horizons that went far beyond physical exploration. Humanity was no longer just looking at the stars. It was becoming part of something much larger. The archive chamber sat at the heart of the global cultural repository, a structure that was part museum, part living library, part testament to human potential. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, now in the twilight of her remarkable career, walked slowly through the holographic displays that captured humanity's transformative journey. Her granddaughter, Maya, walked beside her, listening intently as Elena traced the complex path of human innovation that had reshaped civilization. "It wasn't about the technologies," Elena explained, her fingers tracing a holographic representation of the quantum communication breakthrough. "It was about how we learned to see ourselves." The transformation had been profound and unexpected. What had begun as a series of technological innovations had become a fundamental reimagining of human potential. The adaptive communication networks, the collaborative problem-solving approaches, the innovative resource management, these were more than just technological achievements. They were a new way of understanding human existence. Around them, the archive chamber pulsed with living history. Holographic displays showed the intricate networks of global collaboration that had emerged, where once there had been boundaries, between disciplines, between cultures, between nations. Now there were only connections. Maya listened to her grandmother's stories of the Great Transformation. The world she knew was so different from the competitive, fragmented society of previous generations. Education had become a lifelong, collaborative process. Work was no longer about individual achievement. but about collective potential. Each challenge became an opportunity, Elena said, pointing to a display showing how global teams had addressed complex environmental and social issues. We stopped seeing problems as obstacles and started seeing them as invitations to grow. The space exploration mission that had captured the world's imagination was now just one of many collaborative human endeavors. Research stations on multiple planets and moons operated as truly global initiatives. No single nation or corporation could claim ownership. These were human achievements, pure and simple. Dr. Marcus Chen, now a senior advisor to global innovation networks, joined them in the archive chamber. His work had been instrumental in developing the adaptive communication technologies that had transformed human collaboration. We discovered something fundamental, Marcus explained to Maya. Our greatest technology was never about machines. It was about our ability to listen, to understand, to create together. The global challenges that had once seemed insurmountable, climate change, resource scarcity, social inequality, had been addressed through unprecedented levels of collaboration. It wasn't that these challenges had been completely solved, but humanity had developed adaptive approaches that continued to evolve. Educational systems had been completely reimagined. Schools were no longer institutions that prepared students for a predetermined job market. They were dynamic learning environments that helped individuals discover their unique potential while understanding their connection to the broader human community. Maya showed her grandmother a project she was working on, a collaborative initiative exploring sustainable ecosystem design for a research station on Mars. The project integrated insights from environmental scientists, indigenous knowledge keepers, urban planners, and community leaders from around the world. This is what we learned, Elena said, her eyes bright with emotion. That our greatest strength was never about individual brilliance. It was about our ability to see beyond ourselves. The archive chamber displayed moments of transformation, the quantum communication breakthrough, the adaptive resource management systems, the collaborative space exploration initiatives. But these were more than historical artifacts. They were living memories, continued sources of inspiration and possibility. Dr. Zara Mbeki, one of the pioneers of quantum communication technologies, had once said that humanity's greatest discovery was not a technological breakthrough, but a philosophical one. They had learned that potential was not a finite resource to be hoarded, but an infinite possibility to be shared. As the day progressed, researchers from around the world continued their work. In research centers, educational facilities, and collaborative spaces, the spirit of collective innovation continued to flourish. Elena looked at her granddaughter and saw the continuation of a journey that had begun years ago in a small research facility in Chile. A journey of discovery, of connection, of transformative potential. We're still learning, Elena said softly. And that's the most important part. The archive chamber continued to pulse with living history, a testament to human potential, to the incredible journey of a species that had learned to see beyond its limitations. Humanity's greatest adventure was not about conquering new frontiers. It was about continuously reimagining what was possible.